All right, welcome everybody. It is week 15 of the Mandel check-in meetings. It's May the 18th. I can quickly recap what we went over last week. Last week we talked about the progress being made on the Docker images. Looks like we've got it's evolved from just a set of Docker images to a full-blown dev environment, including Web IDE. So that's great. It looks like we're close to being able to share that more broadly. Mandel development moving along. Last we checked, that we were days away from the transaction lifecycle features being developed, being completed. Testing is ongoing. We had Ross report that now EOSphere is running Mandel 3.05. And there was a question raised by Eve about the stability of Jungle 4, which we've gotten a response from Matthew. I can share his thoughts when we cover that. So we can continue looking in the progress there. Are there any other new items to add to the agenda today? I have some news to report also on the on platform support. We have results now for the survey that was sent out by EOS support. I want just to make sure I don't share any private information. I won't share the results directly, but I can speak to the aggregated kind of insights, and maybe we can work on putting together something that we can either share everything more privately with this group or hide the private information just to get the insights we need publicly. So yeah, maybe we can start with that. The survey went out to hundreds of EOS support contacts. We've gotten 34 responses back. It looks pretty good in terms of there's a pretty good mix of what platform people are using, whether they're Linux, Mac, Windows. It's a pretty broad range. One of the questions we asked for those who are running native rather than in a would a Docker, if native support were dropped for your preferred platform, would a well-documented Docker suit your needs? We had pretty much everybody say yes. There was one person who said no. They said Docker is too slow and created a lot of trash on local machines. Also running native unit tests, and each time rebuild Docker image is the worst dev experience. And we had a couple people say maybe native support is always better than Docker, was one comment. The other person did not leave a comment.
Well, the person that said no and said, it was too slow, what platform were they on?
They were on Windows.
Too bad.
Yeah. Okay. And is that, sorry, actually, no, let me double check that. They were on Mac.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty surprising because, I'd gotten the, so I'm done with the platform support part, so we can kind of cross that off the list there. So I've been running this D.U.N.E tool on a Microsoft Surface tablet. You know what I mean? And like it's perfectly fine with running it on that. I haven't really seen a huge loss of performance across that versus my Threadripper Linux box. So I kind of think to some degree it might be just how they've used, because the biggest thing with the D.U.N.E tool is that it's abstracting over all of the Docker stuff, right? So like the user's never going to even know that they're using Docker. It's just all automatically under the hood kind of doing that. And secondly, Docker itself really shouldn't be putting that much of a performance penalty on anything, because it's not, unless if they are running when, like, maybe the thing was that they were trying to, like, they're on a modern M1 and they're running Docker with an x86 image. Yeah, it's going to emulate x86, and that's a pretty atrocious amount of performance. It's why we now have the ARM images. So,
but it's still a VM on the Mac case.
so on the Mac, no,
it's still a VM. When you run Docker on Mac, it still runs it inside of a VM.
It depends on what you mean by VM, right? Like there's hardware virtualization that it does kick in. Same thing on Windows. So yes, but it's a fairly thin layer. You know, I mean, like the amount there that it's doing is pretty minimal. It's not like a full blown, you're running this thing in VirtualBox.
Well, yeah, but it's also not like you're running Docker on Linux.
Sure, but I mean, I haven't really seen that much of a performance penalty across any of the platforms. You know what I mean? Like that's the point I'm trying to get to there. Is like, I think that there's some degree of either people have been using this incorrectly or they're running, you know, ARM images on an x86 or x86 on an ARM image or on a ARM machine. You know, I mean, that does greatly increase the amount of performance penalty that you have. But it's also going to depend on, are they planning, like there's the big issue there. Are they planning this for dev usage only, or are they planning this for running like a full-blown Node-EOS node, right, to sit there and run a network? You know, I mean, it's been the other sort of big question, because this is designed for, you know, dev support. And I would say if they're planning on running nodes, then I don't know. I think the answer to that was Linux. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, this was targeting specific. So this person, their team does smart contract development.
Okay.
That was the first question. Does your team do smart? And the question was framed for smart contract developers. So yeah, this person who said no. By the way, so we had, again, 34 responses, 15 who had indicated they do use native, and all of them said yes, Docker would meet their needs, except for the one person who said no and two people who said maybe. So it's pretty good, I would say. You know, most people believe a Docker will suit their needs. Again, what this D.U.N.E thing is probably better than what any of these people are expecting from their experience of using Dockers. So we could, we've got the contact information here for the folks who responded. We could, when we have a working version of this D.U.N.E system ready, maybe we can have some of these teams try it out, the teams that have the concerns or maybes, and see if it does indeed meet their needs. Maybe they'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and you can do that now. So that would be wonderful for the next meeting if we can kind of get some feedback on that.
Great. Okay, so let's talk. Sorry, go ahead, Ted.
Daniel, did you put the stats into this anywhere? That I don't remember exactly what you had. 55 people were asked, 52 said yes, that'd be fine. One said no, two said maybe.
I'll do this. So the what I'm looking at has all of the I don't know if we've got the names of the DApps and their answers and all that stuff. I'm not sure if that. I'll have to talk to EOS support if that can be all shared, but I can aggregate it. That's what I'll do. I'll put it in the issue.
Just the aggregate.
Yeah. So we had 35 responses, 34 responses, and 15 who are using native, and only one of them who said the Docker won't meet their needs.
Okay.
But I'll include that in the summary for today's call. I'll make sure all those data is aggregated here.
Thank you. Eve could not make the call today. At least I don't think he's on, and I know he's very interested in that information.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can definitely do that. And
thank you.
Yeah, cool. back to Bucky, you were saying, so we're ready to start testing the Docker image, and we have, I think we have that already. That's here.
Yep, that's where it is.
Great. So we can.
That documentation.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. Wow, Bucky.
I'm a fancy guy.
Very nice. Very nice. Great. So that's, so we can, we can start, maybe we can get EOS support to help reach out to these folks who participated in a survey and say, okay, great. Now try it out. Let us know.
That'd be awesome.
Cool. Anything else to add on that topic of platform support?
Can we get a checkbox in there?
Like this one?
No, the one with the documentation Docker.
Aha, yeah, there
awesome.
You go. I'll keep this unchecked for now until we share all the analysis and follow up with the folks. We'll keep that open. Great job, Bucky. It looks awesome. Looking forward to. I'm not going to be trying it out, but I'm sure folks on my team will.
Yeah, careful, Bucky, or you might be doing more documentation. You don't want to do documentation.
I mean, I should go in and completely change that and make it look terrible. like I do with cooking with my wife. I'm like, oh, look, I burned toast, terrible.
Cool. All right, moving on. Mandel, any updates on how the development and prioritization for 3.1 is going?
It's going very well. The OCI guys are just crushing it. They're doing an amazing job of cleaning up stuff. Matthew Darwin is feeding them some things that block producers, feel that would be helpful, and they're just crushing those as well. We're coming down to the line, but I think we're great on the block log splitting. I think Kevin is on the call, I believe. I believe they're almost, because I think you had a little checkbox somewhere for the transaction lifecycle stuff up at the beginning of the first page you were showing. And I think that they've completed that.
Yeah, we're considering that done. Obviously, if there's any bugs come in, we'll fix those. But we believe we're done, and it's all merged into main. So feel free to try it out.
I thought you had something in the very beginning, Dan, with saying something about it on the very first page when we opened the meeting, where it said, we did.
In the notes there, we did.
Yeah.
So that it was looking like it'll be done in the coming days. So it looks like we were correct. It is done now.
Yep. Okay.
So I'll just put a note here for now and include it in our summary. So transaction lifecycle.
So there's I think the bigger part of the work will be making sure we've got everything documented in the release notes that kind of made it into the cleanup of 3.1. There's a lot more in there than I think we were expecting, because OCI has just gone down a massive list and closed out items, and Matt also made a list from all of the kind of open requests back in the 2.1, 2.2 days, and Matt also has gone down and crushed a whole bunch of those. So there's a lot of cleanup and loose ends that have been kind of fixed and gone into 3.1. I think the harder issue will be getting the release notes to accurately reflect all that.
So it was a long list of features that were in 2.1.
No, they're mostly just open, cleanup. Maybe Matt or Kevin, if you want to give a little flavor to it.
Yeah, I mean, there are features in there. Technically there are features in there. Most of them are, pretty small. It's not like, large features, like big sweeping changes. They're mostly, I categorize as bug fixes. And even the ones that are like you might technically call a new feature, like a new option or those sorts of things. They're mainly focused on bug fixes that are in 2.1. Now, unfortunately, there's just a huge set of stuff that's in 2.1 that won't be in Mandel 3.1. I'm hoping that we'll get everything we want by the time 3.2 is ready. But we're trying to get as much of that in there as we can.
Great. And the update I got from Matthew looks like block log splitting is the next one that he's looking forward to testing.
Yeah, that probably won't come in until close to the deadline. Matt is on the call. Matt's working on that. I don't know if Matt, if you want to give an update.
Yeah, I've kind of waffled a bit on what I'm ultimately going to do here, but it's just to ensure we have something before we went to make the release. I'm probably going to take the implementation that's in 2.1, at least initially, and bring that over. I was hoping to get something a lot simpler, but there's a lot to it. So I think to make sure we have something ready, that's the strategy I'm taking at the moment.
And Matt, do you want to maybe give an update about the massive spreadsheet you pulled and that you and OCI both kind of did a bunch of work on? Is there any flavor you'd like to add to that?
I haven't actually looked at that in the past few days, as I've been kind of heads down with the block log and chip log stuff. But yeah, it really, what that list was is just a dump of all the PRs that went into the old Block 1 EOS repo after the 2.0 release. And I mean, Kevin already kind of did a great summary about it. There's bug fixes in there. There's minor features. There's just some general improvements. There's removal of old deprecated features. It's just a whole smorgasbord of various things. And yeah, I mean, we're getting close to at least getting some sort of disposition for all of them, whether it be don't take or port them over or create an issue that we can reference and decide what to do with. Not necessarily this release, but at least we just don't lose track of it. We can decide what to do in a future time frame.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing that. What Matt basically did was he grabbed everything from where we snapshotted 2.0.14, whatever we took that became the Mandel 3.0, and he looked at any PRs that were applied to any later releases, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and grabbed those and just made a list out of them that's as forward-looking as things that we want to either just say we're not taking them or we will pull them in. And those are the things that a bunch of those did make it into this 3.1 release. So it was great for Matt to do that.
Yeah, and the big thing with that list was just to make sure nothing fell through the cracks. And I think it was very useful in that sense, because there were some things in there that I didn't really even remember that I'm glad we looked through and found. So if you're worried that, I haven't seen the list, I want to go look at the list. Well, the list is more of let's just make sure we see everything and get appropriate issues logged and things of that nature. It wasn't like a working like a long-term working list of any sort. But yeah, I think it served us well in making sure we didn't lose anything through the cracks, because I mean, we're talking thousands of PRs that went into the old Block 1 repo after the 2.0 release, which is what Mandel was originally forked off of.
Yeah, it was about 2,500 PRs were in that list.
Yeah, 2,500 PRs that we've been combing through. Believe me, it's not been fun. But as Matt said, we're getting close to going through the whole list, and yeah, there's some gems in there that I completely forgot about that we're getting pulled over. So yeah, that's.
Do we know what we narrowed that down to? So we started with 2,500. I'm assuming we're not keeping all 2,500 of those.
We're not. I don't know. Like, we're not really counting it in that way.
Okay.
I mean, you could go through there and see we've marked things as merged, which means it's already in either as part of some other effort or was, brought over in some other way. So there's a lot of those. There's still a lot marked with TBD that we need to either create issues for or make a decision for. There's a lot of them just marked no. It's like one of them, I think I wrote hell no. So, it's some of that sort of thing. But yeah, and then there's some that just have an issue and an issue number, and then others that have that were actually just worked right. We didn't have a PR number. So there's a smorgasbord in there. And we're still, we're going to be working off of that for a while longer until at some point we can then say, yes, every line in the spreadsheet either has an issue created or we've decided it's no, or it's already yes.
Right.
Great.
And we'll continue we'll start 3.2 planning in a couple of weeks. We've been running the meeting looking at 3.1, and then we'll kind of look at, what's going on with all of the RFPs and stuff that might make it into 3.2, then plus additional issues that are coming from that list or other ideas that other, developers are coming up with that we want to get into 3.2. So that weekly meeting that we hold at 1:00 on Tuesdays will continue on, and it'll just switch over to being a 3.2 planning meeting.
Cool. So did I capture that right? We've completed the analysis on 2.1 features and all PRs since 2.1 and prioritize and log issues for Mandel. Is that accurate?
Really 2.1 and 2.2.
Okay.
I don't know that they ever released a 2.3. There was starting of planning at 2.3, but it was 2.1 and 2.2. So there were PRs against both of those for sure.
Yeah, and stuff just in develop as well. I mean, it's basically everything. I wouldn't say we're complete. We're probably a good 80% complete of that, but we're not quite through the entire spreadsheet yet.
And it was everything since like 2.0.13. What was the last? Where was the snapshot for? Where did we draw the chalk line on what version of 2.0 that Mandel 3.0 was made on? Was it 2.013 or 2.014?
Yes, although then after that, we did go ahead and merge in the head of EOSIO release 2.0x. So it has the very latest, including a few unreleased things in the release 2.0x branch. And then we've been working like mad to pull in stuff from 2.1 to get into 3.1. And again, we won't have that complete by the time of 3.1. So what you're going to get in 3.1 is somewhere between EOSIO 2.0 and 2.1 plus a bunch plus the other stuff, the API enhancements and a few other miscellaneous things that was done in Mandel 3.05.
Well, I mean, we feel we took the most important items out of 2.1, like the defuse code, the block log splitting. So it really is sort of the key features of 2.1 and 2.0 merged together into 3.1, right?
Yes.
Let me summarize that. So the Mandel 3.1 contains the key features.
Well, it contains all of 2.0 plus the key features of 2.1.
All of 2.0 and the key features. Cool.
Yes.
Plus some bug fixes and stuff, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, plus a ton. And I would say, as people start evaluating 3.1 RC or just main at the moment, if you want to start looking at something, obviously if there's some 2.1 feature we missed, or you notice that, hey, where's this? Certainly let us know, and we can, obviously sooner better than later, we can try to get that in there right away.
Cool. And last week we were saying late May, early June, all the 3.1 features should be ready for testing on Jungle. Are we still on with the block log splitting on track for that, or?
Yeah, let's call it June 1st.
Okay, cool.
I mean, Matt might get done before then, but let's just call it June 1st.
Great. Anything else on the Mandel code development? Beauty. And in terms of testing, I don't have much to report on the nation side of things, besides Matthew mentioned so far so good, everything looking good. Just he's looking forward to testing the block log splitting, but everything else that he's tested so far seems to be looking pretty good. Ross or Michael or anyone else have anything to add on how your testing's been going?
Well, we started producing on Jungle with 3.05 RC1. I did that today, so it appears to be producing well. No issues as such. I also built it on 20.04.
Yeah, no, ours has been running pretty stable. Haven't really pushed it or done much, but a lot of my features are in 3.1. So that's where I'll get to test.
Cool. So yeah, last week you had your API and seeds up, Ross. Now you're producing on also 3.05. Is that right? And
yeah.
Michael,
I gave it its own shiny bare metal server, ready for the testing.
Yeah, hopefully Kevin got those coma fixes in there.
Okay. Anything else on testing? I can add. So again, last week, Eve was asking about the sort of we were getting some reports, I guess, from the folks who have been testing EVM on Jungle, that there's sometimes some stability, Jungle blocks getting, empty blocks, things like that. The feedback I got from Matthew was, yeah, it's a test net. People are testing the cutting edge things. Things are going to break. It's not, Jungle Force seems not to be the ideal place for if you're a developer who needs a stable test environment to test your smart contracts and the apps. Jungle Force in its current state, not ideal for that. It's a great place to try breaking shit, testing the latest, the cutting edge, versions of Node.EOS and things like that. But you may have a bad time if you're looking for a stable environment. There's an opportunity B1 had their B1 testnet that sort of, I think, was the objective of that, is like a stable testnet for testing your apps. There perhaps is a need now that I don't think B1 is keeping up to date with Mandel on that. Perhaps it's time for an ENF testnet or something like that. So I did raise that with Eve. It sounds like it is something ENF is considering. I don't know if Eve's not online. I don't know if anyone else from the ENF can speak to that, or we can save it for next week.
Isn't that kind of the idea of Kylan? I mean,
so I guess that's the other Kylan. There was some work we got to do to get that. It doesn't have power up yet. There's a few places where it's lagging. So that's something we can work on our side to try to push to get up. And that's sort of kind of been traditionally about how Kylan's been used. It's, Jungle is the break shit testnet, and Kylan is the kind of stable mirror of the mainnet, essentially.
Well, I think that last piece may be the most important piece of that, because there is, I think, a slight difference between what the EOSIO testnet was and Jungle. We turn everything on, push it to the limits, do the hardware breaking, missing blocks. But Kylan is supposed to be more mirrored like EOS as a test of like power up and things like that, which we did on Jungle because that's kind of where it was. That's where the focus was. But I do think there is a definable difference potentially between Kylan, or the idea of it, and the EOSIO testnet if you're looking for a more generic, stable testnet of EOSIO versus no, this is EOS, maybe even seed accounts and stuff like that. I mean, I guess that's probably the fundamental thing is, are your accounts, or is everything kind of cloned over like Jungle and Kylan did, or EOSIO testnet, which is just straight up, nope, here goes new, have fun.
Yeah.
But it's
I guess there's also the distinction between, so there's current state EOS and future state EOS. So, right now EOS mainnet is running 2.0. It's not running Mandel. Do we need a stable environment for Mandel and current, a stable testnet for the next version of EOS mainnet, and also a stable version of current EOS mainnet? And which one is which? Would Kylan be the future state and perhaps some ENF or some other developer testnet is the kind of the current state mirror? Is there a need for both even?
I suppose from my perspective, you just got to be careful about having test nets for the test net and then a test net for that test net of the test net. It's just eventually we've got so many.
We call those stage nets.
Inception.
That's their stage net and test nets.
I can tell you on Jungle at the moment, the support's not that good. I think that we've only got maybe about 8 VPs running on it. The rest of them are probably all running on a single server.
That's not that much different than Kylan.
Team. Really? Yes. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should just get one solid one running. Let's just, get one running. If it needs to be something different other than Jungle, then so be it. But let's get one running and, start to test some stuff rather than having multiple disparate places where people go to test. If you want to, break something, I don't know how many tiers you need. That's what I'm getting to.
I do agree. Jungle, I think, is defaulto break shit. I mean, that's infrastructure. Yeah, don't assume it's a stable test net even from a development aspect. Although there are people that are running mainnet applications because Jungle was free, but that's a separate issue. The real question is is Kylan designed to be more of a replica of EOS, or is there a need for a non-EOS clone stable development test environment? Because it's not Jungle. And if you want Kylan to more represent EOS and more be stable about an EOS testing environment, and I don't even know which bucket it may fall into, like a generic EOSIO testing chain, which is what the EOSIO testnet was. Straight up free accounts, test accounts, new keys, block 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. Yeah. So like I said, I've had. It sounds like this is something on the mind of based on my conversation recently with Eve. We'll let him share more details there maybe next week. And in the meantime, I think we can think about.
If we do decide we want those 3, Jungle, Kylan, and ENF, we're in to run as many nodes as needed. So
Cool. Okay. Anything to add on testing? Okay. And that covers the topics that we discussed last week. Anything new to discuss? All right. In that case, we'll call it a day. Let me see here. We got Ted had to drop. Bye, Ted. All right. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.